Okay. Okay, good to vach. Vach. I want to share with you a story tonight about the Tzemach Tzedek. There's a beautiful teaching of the Tzemach Tzedek that I always think about, which is very connected to the upcoming there's a beautiful teaching from the Tzemach Tzedek, whose anniversary of passing is this week on the 13th of Nisan, which is very relevant to the upcoming holiday of Pesach. Every day when we recite the Shema, we say the words, I am Lord your God, took you out of Egypt. I am Lord your God. And Tzemach Tzedek asks, why do we repeat those words twice? I am Lord your God, who took you out of Egypt. And then again, I am Lord your God. That's what Tzemach Tzedek's question is. And the truth is, perhaps you could add to the question. We don't just say it twice, we say actually three times. We repeat the words at the end. I am Lord your God. Then we say again, I'm Lord your God. And we don't just do this once. We say the Shema several times a day. And every time we repeat those words over and over again. I am Lord your God, took you out of Egypt. I am Lord your God. So Tzemach Tzedek answered that when Hashem took us out of Egypt, He didn't just take care of us because there was a big problem. He took care of us because Hashem is our Father and takes care of every single thing that goes on in our life. Tzemach Tzedek was telling us that you might think there's like a big God that takes care of big problems for all the Jewish people. And all the Jewish people together have a problem, then Hashem comes to rescue them together. What if I have one small problem that's bothering me? Then he might think, oh, then Hashem is not going to take care of me because it's just one small little thing. It's just me with my issue. So therefore, Tzemach Tzedek says, we repeat the words again, I am Lord your God. Just like I, Hashem, am the one who will save the Jewish people from the major, huge problems of Paro, of Hitler, Yimach Shemo, of all the times in history when the Jewish people's very existence was threatened. So too Hashem says, I am Lord your God individually. I take care of you personally, whatever's going on in your life. I take you out of your own Egypt. That's what really Pesach is about. So it's not just commemoration of the past, but it's a realization that just like Hashem took us out of Egypt then, we went immediately from the worst scenario to a few weeks later standing on Mount Sinai. So too Hashem rescues us from whatever's going on, and momentarily things change for the good. So the first story I want to share with you is about Tzemach Tzedek himself. Tzemach Tzedek had two Chassidim, Rabbi Binyamin Beinish and Rabbi Yitzchak Shol. And the Tzemach Tzedek was very engrossed in his service to Hashem. He had spent the whole night studying Torah. And the morning, after studying for a whole night, he began doing his prayers with the special kavana, with the special intent of the teachings of the Arizal. So after this very intense program of studying and learning, studying all night and then praying all day, these two Hasidim who were visiting the city of Lubavitch, they had gone to do business. And then one of them, Rabbi Yamin Beinish, he had sold his merchandise and he's preparing to go back. His friend was still involved in trying to sell his merchandise. And they made up, they'll go meet in the shul and they'll daven mincha together. And after mincha is over, they'll go travel back home. So Rabbi Yamin Beinish, he is in the shul. He has a little while till mincha. So what is a Jew doing? He has some time. You know what he does? Takes out a Tehillim. Took out a Tehillim and started saying Tehillim. And that Tzemach Tzedek was observing how he is saying Tehillim. He is saying Tehillim with such sincerity, with such purity. Even though he was a simple guy, Yamin Beinish and his friend Yitzchak Shor, both very simple people. But he said with such sincerity, Tzemach Tzedek started to cry. He wished that he could say Tehillim like this simple guy. But imagine, Tzemach Tzedek is knowledgeable in all parts of the Torah. He just spent a whole night learning, a whole day praying. And he's really, in a whole different caliber incomparably so, to these simple people. And yet Tzemach Tzedek sees in them something that he is, so to speak, envies. And this is the story the previous Rebbe shared. Previous Rebbe said this story teaches us how the meaning of the verse, Hashem is close to all those who call him, with truth. Then beyond the great understanding of the prayers, there is a need to just open your heart and speak to Hashem with truth. Hashem is close to all those who call Hashem with truth. On that note, I'm telling you another story, more contemporary story, about a man named Menachem Pomerantz. Menachem Pomerantz, living in Flatbush, he was working in the meat industry. The busiest season in the meat industry is this time of the year, because everyone's making their orders for Pesach. And it was 3 years ago, in Tafshin Pei Beis, in the month of Adar, shortly after Purim. And he has this pain in his head, in the center of his head, and in his ears, in his throat. And since it's such a busy time, he didn't want to take off of work because everyone's counting on him. He's working in this butchery, and he can't take off. He decides he's going to just muscle through the day. He finishes the day, goes home, takes painkillers, but the painkillers don't take away the pain. So he goes to a nearby clinic, and the doctor examines him. The doctor says, I think you need to go immediately to emergency room. He says, doctor, what are you talking about? Just a little headache, you go to emergency room? Why are you saying that? Doctor says, I suspect that you're developing a stroke. So he called Hatzalah, and Hatzalah took him to the emergency room. And in the emergency room, they did a CT scan. And the doctor said that he sees clearly that there is an injury to the brain, but he can go home. And they're going to schedule an MRI. And once they do the MRI, they'll know more what's going on. So the next day, he gets a call from the hospital. Since it's so urgent, the MRI is scheduled for 4 weeks, for after Pesach. So he's like a little surprised. Instead, it's emergency, do MRI right away, but they couldn't get it done. They couldn't get it done right away. So he called up his own doctor. He visited his doctor. He shows his doctor the CT scan, and the doctor says there's a clear injury to the brain, and I'm going to arrange that you have an MRI within 48 hours. And I see from these injuries that there's some growth in your brain, and it's probably cancerous, and we needed to have this MRI done right away. So of course he's a young man, he's shocked. He calls up his Rabbi Melaveh in Flatbush. He tells him, I'm completely shocked that the doctor is saying that I have this growth, and I know what to do. So Melaveh says, that's what we're going to do. We're going to go together to the Rebbe. We're going to go together to the Ohel. And that's what they do. They decide to meet together in the Ohel on the night before the MRI. They come to the Ohel, and there's like 20 people in the Ohel. Many people, when they enter the Ohel, they recite the customary Minor Lashon. In the Minor Lashon, in that booklet of prayers, there is a line, Shalom Aleichem Adonenu Moreinu V'Rabbeinu. Shalom Aleichem, greetings unto you, our master, teacher, and Rebbe, where you directly address the Rebbe. So Menachem said, when he said those words, he just had the sensation that there's 20 people in the Ohel, but he had the sensation that everyone's out, there's no one there. There's just the Rebbe there. The Rebbe's holding his hand, and he's basically giving him the message, it's going to be okay, nothing to worry about. So he comes out of the Ohel, and he tells us, Rabbi Melaveh, he's so encouraged, he feels really the Rebbe heard him, and that he has a bracha from the Rebbe. And he went to the next morning to the scan, and the doctor calls him after the MRI was done. The doctor says, I don't know what's going on. I myself saw the injuries in the brain from the CT scan, but it's all gone. There's all I see is just brain. There's no injuries. Everything's fine. So he tells the doctor, I know what's going on. I went to the OL. I asked Rebbe for a bracha, and I know that's exactly what's going on. It's interesting. This same Menachem Pomerantz, he shared that when he was a child, we all know that the Rebbe give out wine after every yontif for koshel bracha, for a blessing. So he went by the Rebbe as a child. The Rebbe said something to him. He didn't know what the Rebbe said. So then the Rebbe called him back. He comes back, and they were poured into his cup a second time. And the Rebbe says to him, "Yeah, Tov, it's going to be good." And indeed, it was good, as Rebbe told him. So this is what the Tzemach Tzedek taught. It's not just as a great God who saves us from big problems, but Hashem helps every Jew individually. I think that this teaching of Tzemach Tzedek is connected to another famous teaching of Tzemach Tzedek. Someone once remarked to Tzemach Tzedek that the Alter Rebbe was once given a gift of a silver snuff box. And the Alter Rebbe, he told the Tzemach Tzedek, he broke off the cover of a silver snuff box and he used it to adjust his tefillin. So Tzemach Tzedek said, it's impossible, because my grandfather never broke anything. Instead, he said, there must have been some kind of a chut, some kind of a piece, some kind of a pole in this box, little screw that attached the cover to the box, and he removed the screw, and that's how he was able to take the cover off and adjust his film. The Rebbe explained the story that the path of Chassidus is not to break anything. The path of Chassidus is that everything, unlike, let's say, the path of Musar, which talks about the dignity of the physical, Chassidus talks about the value of everything. Everything in the world has a divine purpose. And therefore, according to Chassidus, there's no concept of breaking something. On the contrary, the idea is to reveal the godly quality of that thing itself. Not to break, but to reveal. A similar note, the Tzemach Tzedek said that the role of a doctor is not to make a person's heart heavy and to feel bad. The Torah does give permission to a doctor to heal, but only to heal. A doctor doesn't have the jurisdiction, the power to say the future and to predict ominous things. A doctor is about healing. I think that teaching is similar. That the doctor's role is not to break. The doctor's role is to build. This teaching, Tzemach Tzedek, is really emblematic of the whole path of Chassidus Chabad. There was time of the Alter Rebbe. There was one chassid of the Alter Rebbe who had a friend who was a chassid of another tzaddik, Reb Chaim Chaikel Hamadura. By the way, the story I'm about to share was one of the favorites, Rabbi Yoel Khan. Rabbi Yoel Khan was the one who was gifted with by a divine gift of understanding Chassidus and memorizing Chassidus. He was the one who would share after the Rebbe finished the Farbrengen. He would memorize the whole Farbrengen and share the whole thing verbatim. So this is one of his favorite stories. He always shared this story. This chassid of the Alter Rebbe noticed that his friend Chaim Chaikel is doing a lot better than he is. Chaim Chaikel's chassid, every day he told the Alter Rebbe, brand, he had to talk. Every day he's burning, he's fire, he's passionate every day. By me, sometimes it's better, sometimes it's worse. But this guy, every single day, he's on fire. The Alter Rebbe said, Nicht brennt, he's not burning. Chaikel brennt in there. It's not that he is burning. It's not his own fire. It's a fire of the tzaddik Chaim Chaikel. In other words, it's something that Hashem has given him through his Rebbe, but it's not something that he himself has internalized, which really is, this is something which is very connected to this month of Nisan. The month of Nisan, unlike the month of Elul, is categorized by the verse, Dodi li v'ani lo. My beloved is to me, and I am to him. The Alter Rebbe explains what this means is that there are times when a Jew is meant to make a step forward towards Hashem. And there are times when Hashem inspires a Jew. So in the month of Elul, before Shoshana, we are meant to make the step towards Hashem. But the month of Nisan, every day of the month is connected to, it's like Rosh Chodesh. As I mentioned last week, Torah says, this month is a month of Rosh Chodesh, which means that every day of the month is like Rosh Chodesh. So it's a miraculous month. It's a month when Hashem reveals himself to us. Not dependent on our service of Hashem, but Hashem shines upon us whether we're ready or not. And that's what the Torah says in the Torah portion we just read this morning. Adam ki yakem mikem korban laHashem. A person who will bring from you a sacrifice to Hashem. The Alter Rebbe said this pasuk means the following: Adam, man, refers to Hashem, who is called man. As in the prophet Ezekiel's vision, there is the throne of God, there's a man on the throne. So a man, yakem mikem, a man brings you close to Hashem. God inspires you. There are times like that. The Alter Rebbe says the Eitzei Yerutza is a device that Hashem gives us for when Hashem inspires us. The advice is take the inspiration and ride on it, make it yours, because the Alter Rebbe says there's a common phenomenon amongst all those who serve Hashem that they get inspired for a couple of weeks and it goes away and they don't know why. The Alter Rebbe says the reason why it goes away is because it wasn't your own thing. It's coming from Hashem. Hashem sent you inspiration. Adam ki Yaakov, a person, Hashem, Yaakov, he's bringing you close to him. And therefore the Torah gives us advice, when you feel that inspiration, make it yours. Make some kind of decision to hold on to the inspiration. Don't just let the inspiration come from Shemayim, from heaven, and don't act on it. Do some kind of a good decision with the inspiration from heaven to hold on to the inspiration. That's what this month really is about. Hashem is inspiring us, but we want to hold on to it. So this story, the Alter Rebbe, this highlights this, how it could be that the tzaddik is shining, it's not your own thing. But the path of Chassidus is Hashem created us as human beings, souls and bodies. And Hashem wants us, ourselves, to be close to him. The goal is not to break who we are. The goal is not to just let Hashem do everything. Hashem helps and gives us a divine inspiration beyond what we're capable of. But the goal is to take that inspiration and make it our own, to make it something, to add something positive in our lives as a result. There was a famous chassid. I shared the story, I think, last year. Reb Reuven Dunin, very pure-hearted chassid of the Rebbe. He was so excited to be by the Rebbe that he would just do somersaults. He was standing in the street in Kingston Avenue, he just do a somersault to express his happiness. And one time, he's doing a somersault as usual by breakfast or lunch in the cafeteria of the yeshiva. And other boys say, there's that crazy man again. He's wondering, maybe I'm not doing the right thing. Maybe I'm causing people to make fun of me. I'm causing them to be negligent in their service of Hashem by acting in a way that they find crazy. He didn't care that they made fun of him. He was wondering, maybe it's not the right thing. So he came to the Rebbe and he asked the Rebbe the question, should I do somersaults, basically, in the lunchroom? The Rebbe said, once a year in Simchas Torah, you should do a somersault. The rest of the year, the inspiration you feel should translate to doing a mitzvah more beautifully, to learning Torah with more depth. Take inspiration that I was saying, basically. You feel inspiration, it's true, but bring that somewhere. I'll share with you one more story before I let you guys go. It was back in 2015. There was a Jew named Yair, and stories from the Sichat HaShavua. Yair was from Ranana, and there was unfortunately, a lot of terror attacks that time period, and he was leaving his house, and he wants to put on a pair of tzitzis. Unlike the Chabad custom, he didn't wear tzitzis at night, just wore them during the day. And he's looking for a pair of tzitzis. All of his tzitzis are in the laundry. There's a new pair of tzitzis, which he wanted to keep for his sister's wedding, which was on Wednesday. So he decided, I'm going to leave the house without tzitzis. I'm just going to go without the tzitzis. That's what he decided. He leaves the house. Then he's like, you know what? Is that the Yitzer Tov? Is that my soul talking? To walk outside without tzitzis, he goes back in the house. He puts on the tzitzis. And then he goes to the bus stop. At the bus stop, he sees a man sweating, talking on the phone in Arabic, and very, very excited. Then all of a sudden, the man lunges at him and starts to stab him. He stabbed him in his neck, and he stabbed him several times. And he was trying to. He recovered enough to fight, to continue fighting with the terrorist, because he wanted the terrorist to be moved away from a woman and children who was right next to him. So eventually, some civilians came, and together they overpowered the terrorist. And they neutralized him. And he went. Eventually, the ambulance came. But before the ambulance came, he was bleeding profusely. So one of the civilians took his tzitzis out from his shirt, and they used it tzitzis as to stifle the blood flow, to basically to keep him alive. And eventually, the ambulance comes, and they take him to the hospital mayor in Kfar Saba. But what really protected him was the mitzvah of tzitzis in a physical way. In a physical way, the mitzvah of tzitzis protected him. So, bottom line is, it's a busy week this week. A lot of work. But we have to realize the Torah is not about breaking. The Torah is not about crushing. The Torah is, Hashem wants a home in the physical world that we're supposed to make with our hands and feet, with our hearts and minds. And Hashem doesn't, as the Alter Rebbe said, as the Tzemach Tzedek said, the Alter Rebbe, my grandfather, wouldn't break anything. So in a similar way, Hashem doesn't want to break us. On the contrary, as the Rebbe once expressed it this way, it really changes the way you think about the whole holiday. The Rebbe said, Hashem wants to take us completely out of Egypt, completely out of all limitations. And therefore, Hashem forbade us to have a tiniest bit of chametz, the tiniest bit of arrogance, of ego, because all that is holding us back from full freedom. The mitzvah that Hashem gave us to remove all chametz from our house is not about hurting us, bringing us down. On the contrary, it's about freeing us completely, letting the neshama shine, putting the ego aside. And so we have to approach this week with that attitude, with joy and gladness of heart, with the mitzvah of preparing for Pesach, and realize that this is not about slavery. Contrary, this is the true freedom of a Jew with Hashem, that Hashem is gifting us with. As the Tzemach Tzedek said, just like God took us out of Egypt, so too Hashem takes each of us out of whatever thing is disturbing us. And the thing that's disturbing every Jew and all the Jewish people for way too long is this long and bitter exile. So Hashem should bless us all, that we should see the coming of Mashiach Tzidkenu immediately. And as the Torah says, it's just like when Hashem took us out of Egypt. He showed us wonders, so too, a Jew with the pure heart asks Hashem, we want Mashiach now, it does something. L'chaim, l'chaim, a good davach, Dave, good davach, ben chai, good davach.